When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
That's when I felt it. My heart beating faster. Something about her. It set off every alarm in my body.
I decided to put some distance between me and the car. I was already mentally prepping myself to bolt if anything happened. And then, it did.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events, this is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we're bringing you 4 stories straight from the edge of danger, where a wrong turn, a strange stare, or a single misstep could change everything. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. First up, what starts as a lingering glance escalates into a terrifying confrontation. From Reddit user Dandelion Bumblebee, narrated by Dallas Stark. Creepy encounter outside my workplace.
About 6 or 7 years ago, I was a supervisor at a liquor store in a pretty small farming village. Basically, the middle of nowhere. One night, a little past 10, my coworker B and I had just closed up like normal. We finished our tasks, packed away what needed packing, and set the alarm. I was lowering the shutters with my key when a car engine suddenly roared to life around the corner. B and I both jumped at the sound. As the shutter hit the pavement, the car came screeching around the corner and pulled up abruptly, maybe 15 feet away from us. It stopped just outside the range of the store's prehistoric CCTV cameras, perfectly parked in their blind spot. I don't know much about cars, so I couldn't tell you the exact make or model. But it was nice. Maybe a Jeep or a Land Rover. Not uncommon around here, especially for farmers. But usually they're caked in mud. This one was pristine. Pitch black. Shiny. All the windows tinted darker than what I think is legally allowed. We couldn't see anything inside. the engine stayed running. B and I chatted, but neither of us really focused on the conversation. We were stalling, unconsciously waiting for the driver to leave. But they didn't. 5 full minutes passed like that. Uncomfortable. Still. Bee's older than me. I went to school with her kids, and I could tell her mom mode had kicked in. She offered to drive me home. Her car was parked further up the road, meaning we wouldn't have to walk past the strange vehicle. But I lived with my parents just a few minutes down the road, and I'd have to pass right by it. Even though I felt uneasy, I didn't want to assume the worst, or inconvenience her, since she lived in the opposite direction. So, I declined. Yeah, I know. I'd die first in a horror movie. I decided to cross the street instead, just to put some distance between me and the car. I was already mentally prepping myself to bolt if anything happened. And then, it did. Just as I stepped to the edge of the curb, someone jumped out of the back seat. He wasn't masked or in dark clothes, but he wore a baseball hat and kept his head low. All I could tell was that he was white, at least 6 feet tall, and muscular enough to overpower either B or me, both of us being closer to 5 feet and not exactly in peak shape. Weirdly, he left the back door wide open. I immediately backed up. Maybe he sensed I was on edge because he casually lit a cigarette and tried to act nonchalant. At the same time, he walked around the back of the car, crossing to our side of the road. He stopped about 10 feet away. Actually, I said to B, if the offer still stands, I'd love a ride. She looked relieved. We speed walked to her dinky little 2-door car, not taking our eyes off that man or the vehicle for more than a second. The moment we got inside, I pulled out my phone to try and snap a picture of the license plate. B had the same idea and rummaged through her glove box for a notepad. But before either of us could get the plate, the man climbed back into the back seat and the car peeled off into the night, leaving behind a half-smoked cigarette on the pavement. Typing this up makes it feel even more trivial than it did in my head. But in the moment, it felt deeply wrong. Something was off. The theory that comes up most when I retell this story is that they were planning to rob the shop. B and I would have been easy to overpower. Presumably, at least one more person was in the vehicle. They could have taken my keys or forced us back inside to disarm the alarm and open the safes. In fact, a few months later, I heard the shop was held up at knife point. No idea if it was the same people, but timeline-wise, it fits. My mother has the scariest theory. She watches a lot of true crime and is convinced she could have been a police detective if not for her criminal record. She believed it was a planned kidnapping for me. She has 4 main pieces of evidence. 1. They were parked exactly in the blind spot of the external cameras and weren't wearing proper face coverings. Inside the store, there were more cameras they couldn't have avoided. So if robbery was the plan, their strategy didn't make much sense. They waited until we were fully out of the building. If robbery was the goal, wouldn't it be easier to ambush us at the door? The back door of the car was left open. If I'd walked by it would have taken no effort to pull me inside. I always took the same short route home. Same time, same pattern. Now, I don't know why anyone would specifically want to kidnap me, but I have to admit, her logic does make sense. I'd already given notice and had just 2 weeks left at the job. After that night, my mom made my stepdad drive me to and from work for every remaining open and close shift. What helps me sleep is the idea that this could all have been a coincidence. Maybe the car's owner didn't want his mate smoking inside and pulled over to let him out. Maybe they really did want to come in and buy something, but when they saw we were closed, they paused to figure out where else to go. Still, I can't explain all those red flags, and Bea and I were both thoroughly shaken. Even now, I think about what might have happened if I just walked home, if I'd passed that open door, and I'm really glad I didn't.
You're listening to Disturbed. We'll be right back. Next, a simple errand takes a dark turn, and it doesn't stop when she goes home. From Reddit user Acrobatic End 5632, with narration by Kyra Cornett.
Recently, I went into a local grocery store with my 2-year-old daughter. It was around 5 p.m., pretty busy, and I was carrying her since I was just going in quickly to grab some frozen chicken. As I walked in, I noticed an older middle-aged woman pushing a grocery cart out the door. Walking beside her was a young adult, or maybe a teenager, I couldn't really tell. And sitting inside the cart was another teen wearing a hoodie, head down, not moving. I didn't think too much of it, just another family leaving the store, but I'm a pretty observant person by nature, and that really paid off in this moment. I went into the first freezer section and looked down toward the end of the aisle, and that same older teenager who had been walking beside the cart was back inside, standing there, watching me. I thought, that's weird. I just passed you on your way out. Why are you back in here alone? I shook it off and kept shopping. I couldn't find the frozen chicken I wanted in that aisle, so I went 2 aisles over. And there he was again, just standing there, watching me. He wasn't shopping, he wasn't holding anything, just standing. I made eye contact with him, and my gut immediately knew something was wrong. My heart started pounding. I was still holding my daughter. There was no way I was setting her down. I quickly grabbed the chicken I needed and headed towards self-checkout. And guess who was there? Again. He was lingering near the self-checkout area, watching me, not even pretending to do anything else. That's when I made a decision. There was no way I was walking out of that store and letting him follow me to my car. So I walked right past him and up to the front desk to find a manager. All I could find was the bookkeeper, so I told him someone had been following me. I turned to point the guy out, and there, in the second checkout lane, was the woman I'd seen earlier, and the kid still sitting inside the grocery cart, hood still pulled low. And there was the guy who'd been following me, now tapping the one in the cart on the shoulder and saying, "We need to go now, we need to go." I was about 6 feet away. I heard him clearly. Right then, the actual manager came up front and I repeated what I'd said. I told him that guy had been following me around the store. The group looked like they were just about finished in the checkout lane. The manager told me, "I've actually been watching them for the last hour. I felt like they were up to no good." He ended up walking me out to my car. Once I got home, I called the police just to make them aware. The officer on the phone took me seriously. He asked me what I thought their intentions were. I said, honestly, I think they were going to try and take my baby. If I'd gone out to the car alone, I think they would have grabbed her. I'm not a big person. I'm on the shorter side. I know I would have had to put up one hell of a fight, but I would have. I would have given them the fight of their lives if they tried to take my child. The whole thing shook me for days. Still does, honestly. I just wanted to share this to vent, but also to bring some awareness. Situations like this can happen, even in broad daylight, even in your local grocery store.
In our third story, a listener from Nova Scotia shares a terrifying experience that unfolded just steps from home. A man who won't let up, a neighborhood that suddenly feels unfamiliar, and a young woman trying to get away. From disturbed listener Syria, told by Jazz Williams.
I went to college in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Halifax is a great place to live because while it is a bustling city, it often feels more like a suburb. At night, the streets quiet down a lot. During university, I stayed in the city one summer to work at a downtown bar. I lived in a residential neighborhood close to the university, about a 20-minute walk from work. The bar stayed open late, and being young and broke, I often walked home alone after my shifts. That summer, I lived with 2 girlfriends at their house before moving elsewhere for the next school year. The only issue was we didn't have enough keys to go around, so we usually just left the door unlocked. If I came home to a locked door and no one was there, I'd climb through a back window into my friend's room. One night, around 1 a.m., I was walking home after work. The streets were quiet as I entered the residential area where we lived. I had about a block and a half to go, so I needed to take the next left, then a quick right onto my street, cross the road, and I'd be at my front door. As I walked up the street, a car began approaching from the opposite direction. He was driving toward me on the lane closest to the sidewalk that I was walking on, and as we passed each other, the car came to a sudden stop beside me. It was just slightly behind me when it stopped, and it caught in my peripheral vision. I mean, it was really abrupt. The car just kind of jerked, as if he pressed on the brake unexpectedly. I felt like it was weird. I paused the music playing in my headphones, and I glanced back as I kept walking to take in a few of the details. It was a small black car, both windows down all the way, and the driver was a man wearing a sleeveless shirt. He wasn't looking directly at me, but I suspect now that he was watching me in his mirrors. He didn't say anything or get out. He just sat there, idling for an uncomfortably long time. Eventually, he peeled off, turning left at the next intersection. The important detail here is that this turn was behind me and across the street. It was not the left that I would be taking to get home, but rather a street opposite to it. The move felt deliberate, as if he wasn't going that way until he crossed my path. Now, at first, I didn't feel much beyond a spike of adrenaline. I mean, I had stayed calm and kept walking without breaking stride during the whole encounter. But a few seconds later, a deep sense of unease set in. My gut was telling me something wasn't right. I decided instinctively to run. I sprinted toward my left turn. Once I made that, I kept running until I approached the right turn onto my street. I was nearly home. I could see my house at this point as I approached the street, and that's when I heard the screech of tires behind me, followed by the roar of a car accelerating in speed. It was coming my way. I didn't even need to look back, and in fact, I didn't. I just knew it was him. He looped back around and was now following me. Everything that happened next was probably only 10 seconds, but so much ran through my head that it could have been 5 minutes. I debated whether to hide in a bush or duck into someone's backyard or just scream. I knew I had to act. Freezing wasn't an option. I didn't want him to know where I lived, but I didn't have time to find anywhere else, so I ran to my house. As I turned the corner and I crossed the street, I had 2 panicked thoughts. 1, I didn't have a key, and 2, I didn't have time to go through the back window. Our house's porch was up 10 steps, and there was a second front door next to ours for the upstairs tenants. It was a split house. I decided if my door was locked, I would try theirs as a last resort instead of trying to bolt for the back window in an attempt to get in. He pulled up just as I reached the steps. I ran up, taking 2 at a time, and as I got to the door, I turned and saw him very clearly from his seat. There he was, 30 or 40 years old, definitely older than me, and alone. The car was a bit beaten up, and everything about the moment felt terrifying. I grabbed the doorknob. To my immense relief, the door was open. The house was dark. My roommates were asleep. But I stepped inside, I shut the door, and I locked it. Then I dropped to the floor and I crawled into the living room, and I crouched low beneath a large window that faced the street. From there, I watched. He sat outside for several minutes. I don't know why I didn't call the police. I just wasn't thinking clearly. I was so focused on staying hidden and what my next move would be if he got out the car and approached the house. But eventually, after what felt like forever, finally, he drove off. Man, I was deeply shaken for days after that. The fact that he knew where I lived scared me the most. A few weeks later, I moved out. I never saw him again, and nothing like that ever happened to me again, but I've never forgotten the feeling of that night. All I have to say is, trust your intuition. When he turned down that street behind me, I just knew he would be back. And what strikes me most, even now, is how silent the whole encounter was. He didn't catcall me. I didn't scream. We didn't even exchange a single word. And yet the tension was overwhelming. Everything felt loud in my body, in my mind. But in reality, the loudest sound that night was the screech of his tires.
Welcome back to the podcast. Our final story tonight proves that danger doesn't always announce itself. One moment you're walking down the sidewalk, the next you're nearly being stabbed by a stranger in broad daylight. From Reddit user DoorTTYA, narrated by Hannah North.
When I was 17, I lived in a small town but went to school in the nearest big city, about 25 miles away. Public transit made getting to school a pain. So during the week, I stayed in a dorm in the city. I'd come home on Fridays and go back on Sundays. My bus always arrived around 2 p.m, and my boyfriend, who also went to my school and used public transit, would meet me there. Every week, I waited at the station for about an hour and a half, and then we'd head back to the dorm together. One day, I was waiting like usual, sitting upstairs at the station. From where I sat, I could see the entire ground floor. I had my headphones in and was scrolling on my phone. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a homeless woman wandering around. She paused occasionally, looked around, but I didn't think much of it. There are a lot of homeless people in that area. A bit later, I saw her start walking in my direction. Still, I didn't think anything of it, until she got a few feet away and started talking to the people nearby. I assumed she was asking for money. Then she turned to me. She stopped right in front of me. I looked up. She just stared. Her eyes were glassy, like she was high on something, and her body swayed slightly. She was filthy. Honestly, she looked like she was in bad shape. Her face was streaked with dirt and some kind of green liquid dripped from the corner of her mouth. She wore a thick coat, grey pants, and black boots, even though it was spring, and carried a black backpack. She looked about like she could have been 25 or 45. There was no way to know. I saw her lips moving and realised she was speaking to me. I took out my headphones to hear her, but as soon as I did, she went silent and kept staring. "What?" I asked. "Could you say that again?" She spoke again, but it was just mumbled nonsense. I couldn't understand a single word. "I'm sorry," I said. I can't understand what you're saying." That's when I felt it. My heart beating faster. Something about her. It set off every alarm in my body. She kept mumbling and slowly started digging around in her coat pocket with her hand. I glanced down, thinking maybe she needed help with something, but then she pulled her hand out and she was holding a piece of glass. A big one, about 6 inches long, sharp. She slid it up under her coat, holding the edge in her palm, angling it toward her forearm. I froze. My eyes widened and panic set in. "What do you want from me?" I asked, sharper now, fear creeping into my voice. It was broad daylight, a busy train station. People were around. I didn't think she'd do anything. But suddenly, she stepped forward and shoved the glass toward my neck. I jumped up just in time, shoved her back and yelled, "What the fuck are you doing?" She mumbled again, angrier this time, still incomprehensible. I was shaking, terrified. I grabbed my travel bag, eyes locked on her as I backed away. She stood there, glass still in hand, staring at me with those dead, furious eyes. "Leave me alone! Go to hell!" I shouted, voice cracking, and rushed off. I saw people turning, watching. The entire station had seen it now. I ran outside and spotted a few police officers nearby. Relief washed over me. I walked toward them, but didn't say anything. I figured if I told them, they'd just tell her to leave, that'd be it. So I stayed close by to them, safe. A few minutes later, I saw the woman again. She came outside too, walking in my direction, still staring, still furious. I didn't see the glass in her hand anymore. I grabbed my bag and hurried to another part of the station courtyard, somewhere she couldn't see me. I was trembling, in shock. I never saw her again. A bit later, my boyfriend arrived. I told him what happened, and he was horrified. He told me never to wait at the station again. So I didn't. From then on, I always waited at the dorm. Even now, years later, every time I'm at that station, which is rare, I still get anxious. I still live in the city, even after finishing school. My boyfriend and I live together now. But that moment, knowing what could have happened if I hadn't reacted in time, if I'd frozen or just looked away, it still scares me.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Noah Fouts. Our audio engineers are Nathan Corson and Will Pritz. Executive producer Bridget Coyne. Until next time, stay safe out there.
Life is a workout, and Smoothie King is here to help you power through. Whether you're grinding out bicep curls or muscling the couch across the living room, crushing morning miles, or sprinting through back-to-back meetings, Smoothie King has fuel to help you maximize your workouts, own your recovery, and elevate your game. Give your body the energy, protein, and power it needs with a lineup of delicious smoothies made to help you conquer your goals. Only at Smoothie King.